and welcome you to this People Track session, Mental Health for Hustlers. Thank you for joining. We have a full month of programming. Check out the full schedule. In fact, I've opened it right here at the westlopestartupweek.com website. You can scroll down, find the event schedule. And I've opened up this particular session from the first day of West Slope Startup Week because we have Zoom meeting recording links here. These will be available within 2 days after the sessions, so you can revisit the schedule to find those recordings. But let's roll back here. I want to point out our generous sponsors that have made this free and available to everyone all month. I also want to call attention to a mentorship programming every Thursday. I believe they're only on Thursdays, but they have an army of incredible Colorado entrepreneurs and experts who are sharing their time with everyone here. Book some time with them. Plenty of openings available. So go find those sessions. In fact, let's go ahead and roll back and show you exactly where to get them. So view all dates in the event schedule. And here we go, mentor office hours. You see this little gray box here. Get yourself some time with a Colorado mentor. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Kayleen Cohen from Mountain Dog Media. She's going to talk to us today about mental health for hustlers. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Spencer. I appreciate it. So this is my second year being involved in West Slope Startup Week. I am so excited to be a part of this event again. I was just saying earlier, I honestly am loving the virtual format. I think that it is providing an opportunity for even more people to be involved and for us to make some really great connections among the West Slope. So this is so cool. So happy to see you guys here at West Slope Startup Week. And thank you especially for coming to Mental Health for Hustlers. I'm going to screen share with you guys. All right, so hopefully you can see that. So my name is Kayleen Cohen. I am the founder of Mountain Dog Media. We are a digital marketing agency based out of Steamboat Springs, Colorado, but serving the entire Western Slope community and beyond. So obviously digital marketing is my expertise. Why am I here to talk to you about mental health? Because it is my passion topic. So I think that this is something really important, easily swept under the rug for a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm really glad that you guys came out today to talk about this. So I started my company 7.5 years ago. And as many of you probably know, when you start a company, you're just full of energy and you're working around the clock to make everything happen. So I was just hustling for about 5 years straight before I realized I had burnt myself to a tiny little crisp. And I was experiencing a pretty major spell of depression, was feeling very isolated and had lost a lot of creativity for my business and just needed to really start taking care of myself in a much more extreme way. And so that has been a lot of my journey over the last 3 years, is learning how to have a healthier work-life balance and really learning how to take care of myself properly. So I hope I can share some of that with you guys today. I certainly am not preaching from a point of perfection. I have plenty of room to go on this. I think it's a journey. And really one of my primary goals is to start destigmatizing conversations about mental health in the workplace. And I think this is one step. We're kind of in the workplace. Let's have a destigmatized conversation about mental health, okay? All right, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is hustle culture. By the authority vested in me by absolutely no one, I'm coining the term hustle culture. I think that it kind of summarizes this phenomenon of startup enthusiasm. We're celebritizing entrepreneurs and startup founders, people like Elon Musk and Brad Feld. We want to wear clothes that say hustle, hustle, hustle all over them. And we all sing to ourselves, every day I'm hustling. And it is just cherished by our culture. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I am saying potentially there are some side effects to hustle culture, right? every person that's here right now is hustling. You're probably checking your email on your phone as we speak, checking your LinkedIn, multitasking. You're chasing the end of a bottomless to-do list. That's what it feels like to me being a small business owner. Is I'm a to-do list enthusiast. I'll talk about that later on, but those boxes, you're never going to check all those boxes. You're always chasing a bottomless to-do list. And that's really hustle culture. And so I'm wondering if, your hustle muscle is getting sore. I find that my hustle muscle gets pretty sore after I've just been flexing endlessly for some period of time. So I want to talk about the impact of hustle culture on mental health. I found a rather startling statistic. 1 out of 3 entrepreneurs struggles with a mental illness, such as depression, bipolar disorder. And what's concerning about this is that the number for the general population at large is 1 out of 4. So entrepreneurs are actually more likely to struggle with a mental illness than the general population at large. And so that's something that I think is an idea that we really need to sit with and understand as entrepreneurs, that there's that much more likeliness for us to be struggling because we're squeezing and pushing ourselves so hard. I also know as a startup founder that there's this idea that you are your brand and we are our brands so often that it can be very difficult to show vulnerability because you don't want to show that your brand or your company has any type of weakness. But I think as founders and leaders and hustlers, we need to rope together and support each other. Since we work all the harder, it's that much easier for us to slip into a dark place, right? I know for me, personally, my business has been my #1 priority for the last 7.5 years since I started it. And it's so easy for my personal goals to take a back seat. And that can be really frustrating sometimes when I look at myself and I say, wow, you've spent 7.5 years and you haven't gotten any better at meal planning or nutrition, but you've gotten, you've met your revenue goals and you've figured out how to do all your small business taxes and you're converting your leads. Okay, that's awesome, but it'd be great to accomplish my own personal goals as well. So I think it's about finding the balance, right? So I'm gonna ask Spencer to activate our little poll. We have a little 3-question poll. It is going to be anonymous, so you can just submit the answers to that poll anonymously. I just want to get a quick gauge of the audience. The first question is, have you ever experienced symptoms of depression as a result of your workload? I know my answer is yes. Number 2 is, are you comfortable talking about mental health in the workplace? That's something we're really going to dive into today. And then lastly, are you comfortable talking about mental health with your friends and family? So that's awesome. So everybody spend a couple seconds just answering in there. There are some really great books that I read on this topic. One of them is Startups to Die For, that talks about entrepreneurs and their mental health issues and really dives into this. But some of the statistics that book brings up is that it's interesting to consider that females attempt suicide 3 times more than males. And I just should backtrack a second to say that depression, if left untreated, is a fatal disease that can result in suicide. And so that is why it is just so important for us to have these conversations and destigmatize this stuff in the workplace, and just consider that more than 44,000 Americans die each year from suicide. So how can we protect the people in our community and protect ourselves? So it looks like I'm already seeing some great feedback in that poll area right now. It looks like 10 out of 11 of us have experienced symptoms of depression as a result of your workload. I am so happy for that magical 1 person that has not experienced that. And I hope that you will use this workshop as an opportunity to look for things that you can help identify in your coworkers to help them feel better and help support them. Are you comfortable talking about mental health in the workplace? The majority of you guys said yes. Only 27% of our respondents said no. So hopefully we can start to shift that narrative a little bit so that you do feel more comfortable being a leader in that regards and having those conversations in the workplace. And then 91% of the respondents said yes, they are comfortable talking about mental health with their friends and family. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and through here. So you might be struggling if crying. Let me dive into crying. I'm a really good crier. My grandma said to me recently, Kayleen, you're such a good crier. And I had never really thought that that was a skill, but boy, is she right. And it is really a warning sign to me, especially if I am crying behind the wheel of a car, blasting death metal into my face. That is a sign that I might be overwhelmed and struggling. Another personal go-to is crying at my to-do list. And this is actually a really big one. Hopefully you guys aren't this extreme, but this is an example that I've had to learn repeatedly in my own life, is that if I cry profusely at my to-do list for more than 30 minutes or an hour, I need to take a mental health day. That should probably have been obvious to me, but it's a rule that I had to create, okay? Because sometimes I'm just in that spot. So hopefully you guys aren't that extreme. If you're not crying, listening to death metal or crying at your to-do list, maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed. Or maybe you're feeling a general sense of detachment. I know for me as a small business owner, when everything's going well and I'm feeling super positive, I am just immersed in the details of the projects that I'm doing and take them so seriously and so personally. And when I start to get overwhelmed and I'm not caring for my mental health, I generally grow rather detached from the work that I'm doing and the implications. And so feeling that sense of detachment can be a really good warning sign that you need to care for yourself before you can actually really be invested in the work that you're doing. Exhaustion and fatigue, these are classic depression symptoms or just overwhelm symptoms. If you just hustled all the way through the night trying to get something ready for a launch, is it really realistic for you to expect yourself to have another 8-hour workday that next day? So just being realistic with yourself about your energy levels, and if you're experiencing exhaustion or fatigue, considering how you can get some self-care for yourself. Self-medicating with alcohol or marijuana, etc. This is another good sign that maybe there's something overwhelming you in your life if you feel like you need some extra support, or you're just trying to detach yourself in that way. So that can be another warning sign to just kind of keep an eye out for. Now, this one's huge. This probably should have been at the top of the list, imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, for those of you who aren't familiar, is this sense of feeling like I don't belong. People are gonna find out I'm not qualified for this. They're gonna find out that I'm a phony. So I know that this is so easy to experience in the workplace, especially in startups and when you're really taking a risk and putting yourself out there as a leader or developing a new concept. It is so easy to get your internal narrative really bogged down by imposter syndrome, unwarrantedly so. So often I find that imposter syndrome, that narrator is just downright rude. So if you're experiencing that voice in your head, how can you do some self-care and start to move beyond that? Okay, so obviously some of these are rather general, some of them are more specific. Another one that I find is a really great obvious cue for yourself or others is posture and facial expression. It's not actually up here on my little slides, but I was thinking about when this hit me so hard. I was here in Steamboat Springs walking through City Market, the grocery store, and I was having a super bad day. I just felt so grumpy and so depressed, and I'm like completely hunched over like a gremlin, pushing my cart through the grocery store, like growling at everybody. I say, "Arr, arr." And I observe that basically everybody else is doing the same thing. And I was like, geez, everybody is having a crap day today. This is awful. And then the next time I went to the grocery store, I was in a significantly better mood. I'm bopping around, I'm pushing my cart, I'm smiling at everybody. And of course, this is pre-face mask, so I'm actually smiling at everybody and they could see my mouth. And people are standing up and straightening their shoulders and smiling back at me. And it just made me realize how major your body language and your posture, my spine is basically a litmus test for how happy I am. If I'm doing pretty well, up, I'm perky. And the more overwhelmed I get, the more just like crushed and sunken in I start to become. And so I think especially in the workplace, this is something that we can monitor for in our coworkers. If somebody's scowling at you or slumping at their computer, maybe they need a pat on the back, hey, how you doing? You want to go get a cup of coffee with me? And you can try to help that person unpack what they're experiencing a little bit. So I think posture and facial expressions are another good sign if somebody is potentially struggling. All right, so this quote, only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. I am just giving you this to just bring down the vibe a little bit for a second, that what you're experiencing, if you're experiencing any of this within yourself, that just makes you that much more able to connect with other people about this. So I just want you to know that you're not alone when you experience these symptoms, and that the other people around you are going to just drink up your yummy, yummy support when you're able to offer that to them as well. Okay, so let's all remember that we can use our experiences to connect with other people. Awesome, so now we're gonna dive into some of the activities. And so I'm going to talk just a second, and then I want to do some sharing is caring with you guys. I hope that you had a chance to check out the homework that I gave you ahead of time, because of course I am rude and I like to give you homework in the middle of July. And this activity is actually from the book Designing Your Life. I'm going to ask Spencer to drop the link over in the chat. Boom, thanks buddy. So that is the Amazon link. This book is awesome. This has helped me so many times. I'm reading it for a second time right now. They apply design theory to the question, how do I live a joyful life? And it's all about finding work-life balance and finding a way to do work that is really impactful and meaningful for you. So if you're asking yourself any questions about how can your life be better designed, more joyful, or more impactful, I think this is an excellent resource to explore. Right out of chapter 1 is the wellness meter. So they have a concept that you can't know where you're going until you know where you are. And I think this is hugely important when it comes to mental health. I personally do a ton of journaling, so I do a lot of touch bases with myself, but I try to do this wellness meter at least 4 times a year. And what they ask you to do here is to basically chunk your life up into 4 categories and rank 1 through 4 in all of those categories. 1 being I'm completely miserable, and 4 being I couldn't possibly be more satisfied in this department. Work is anything that you do for money or as a volunteer for your community. Health is relating to your physical and mental health. Play is the things that you do for fun. For me, that's the ceramic studio, long walks with my dog, camping trips every weekend in July. And then love is both your romantic relationships and your close relationships with your friends and your family as well. What's really crazy to me is I find my meter moves. My meter moves all over the place from one quarter to the next. I'm sure if I did this every day, it'd be different. So for example, just a year ago, my work meter was at 4, now it's at 1. And 2 years ago, my love meter was at 1, now it's at 4. So these things are always shifting, but I think that this is a really good way to engage with yourself and find out where you are and what departments of your life you need a little bit of extra love. So like I said, I'm identifying that I need some extra love in my work and play departments, but I'm feeling pretty good in my health and love departments. I'm curious if anybody else would like to share if they completed the wellness meter, if that caused you to have any types of epiphanies or realizations. Does anybody want to share their wellness meter? It's a big vulnerability. How about a show of hands really quick for people that did the wellness meter? I won't ask you to share. I'm just curious to know if you did it. Okay. If you didn't do it, go ahead and spend some time this afternoon with that and identify where in your life you need to give yourself some extra love, okay? We're all worthy of that. Oh, Spencer, you want to share?
I saw a few microphones unmute, so maybe about to say something. I know looked like Mara unmuted there if you wanted to share.
I was gonna say I was bad and I didn't do my homework. I didn't do the wellness meter, but I would say just looking about it and thinking about it, that it so fluctuates for me. You know, you said like 2 years ago, and I'm finding these days that in this world it fluctuates daily, even more, you know, weekly, monthly. And so it's just interesting to think at times when things felt more steady and now when they feel so chaotic that it's probably really more important for me to be checking in with this more frequently because it feels like it's daily, weekly, monthly.
I agree with that. I think it is changing daily these days. And so I like to do these kinds of touch bases with myself. I would do it daily if that's helpful. So I encourage you guys to spend some time thinking about where you are on the wellness meter right now. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think this is a good daily one. I do like the color wheel that's a little bit more, it's got like 10 different touch points, and do that, try to do that every like quarter. But this is a good just kind of daily check-in. So it's a little easier to do than the wheel.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So I think I shared with you guys enough about the wellness meter. I encourage you add that to kind of your tool box for self-care. So again, obviously I'm not a therapist. This is not my profession. This is just my passion. So I'm gonna make a few suggestions, but take them with a grain of salt. And I think the answer about what you do is different for every single person. So this is something that you really need to spend some time reflecting on what fills your cup and what brings energy back to you. Most importantly, when we're talking about mental health, I think the first step is mental health mindfulness, just getting a general inventory of where you are. The wellness meter can be a helpful tool in that process, but also starting to just inventory throughout your day what gives you energy and what takes it away. This is another activity from Designing Your Life where you actually fill in like a little graph chart throughout the day. Oh my gosh, I was doing graphic design and I felt alive, and then I was answering emails and I felt dead. And starting to kind of understand, hey, there are certain activities that I do throughout the day that just are amazing and make me feel so good. And then there are certain things that I do that are not so much. And just starting to have that mindfulness inventory of the impacts of your different activities on mental health, I feel like is enormously important. Before you can start solving those problems, you really got to understand what the problems are. So I know from my own personal experience, especially when you're really struggling with mental health issues, that just getting the ball rolling, choosing to do anything can be so difficult. So instead of, making yourself a massive list, like start meditating every day, go for a 1 hour walk, get therapists, let's just start by creating a mindful inventory of where you are right now. And then you can start chiseling away from there, right? So then after you've done that, then it's self-care. And it could be therapy. It could be the ceramic studio. It could be a good Netflix binge. I can't say what self-care is for you, but I certainly am discovering what it is for me. I would actually like to take just a second if everybody wants to pop over into the chat and share one self-care activity that you enjoy. I think that would be really fun. I'll pop open the chatty chat. Shredding the gnar. I think a lot of us Colorado people are going to say that. Yes, dogs. Yes, trail running. Yes, go to the woods. Yes, watching good movies. Awesome. Keep dumping those ideas in there. So you guys know what you need to fill your cups back up. And when it comes to identifying this kind of stuff in the workplace, what can you do as a leader to re-energize your team? I think maybe sometimes your entire team needs team self-care. Just like sometimes my house needs house self-care and my plants need plant self-care. How can you foster team self-care and employee self-care? Ooh, going to the salon, that sounds fun. So you guys have some great ideas. Cuddling with the dog, genuinely the best. This is Mountain Dog Media. I am here to love my dog. I've created this life of self-employment so that I can spend all day loving my dog. Everybody's got some great answers to that. That is awesome. So self-care is a huge component of being able to take care of yourself when you realize that your cup's getting a little low, right? Okay. So here comes the 5 whys exercise. Hopefully you guys might have seen this in the homework. So this is another one that I think is super helpful for both your personal and your professional life. This really helps you rip apart and get to the bottom of any tension or issue that you're having. So this was given to me by a mental health professional maybe 6 or 7 years ago at this point. And at first I found it very annoying to ask why 5 times, but it really does help you peel back to the core intentions of something. So I actually decided to do this exercise again myself just this morning to get another living example for you guys. So my statement at the top this morning was, I'm feeling a strong urge to pursue a creative side hustle, but I'm scared to take a leap of faith. So that's where I am right now. And then I got to ask myself why 5 times. And my first answer was because I'm experiencing a lack of reward in my day-to-day and want to contribute something more impactful, but my current income is relatively consistent and requires the majority of my bandwidth. Why? Because I need to align my life view and work view to feel more satisfied professionally. Why? Because I want to share myself authentically with the world. Why? Because I have pure and authentic value to contribute. Maybe a little repetitive there, but you know. Oh, Kayleen, why? The 5th why. Because I've walked a path that makes me both unique to myself and uniquely relatable to others who have experienced similar things. I can create resources that are truly impactful for my community. Stuff like this. So you can see how that 5th answer was pretty far away from my first answer and really helps me unpack the meat of this issue. My conclusion is that I want to contribute in a way that is more authentic to my unique human experience and stands to drive a positive impact in my community. And my solution is to keep pushing, don't be scared, put myself out there, create content, create resources, and share. Okay, so that was me feeling, at the top, I was feeling stuck and scared, kind of helped myself understand what my core intentions, what really within my, core of my soul is motivating me to feel that way, and then what I can do. I can do things like this because ultimately my passion is getting other small business owners and hustlers and entrepreneurs to have these destigmatized conversations about mental health. Yay. So I'm curious to know if anybody did the 5 whys activity that would like to share with us. And last year, I actually taught this exercise as a full workshop at West Slope Startup Week. It was called Finding Your Why. And we did this exercise in a huge room. There was about 30 of us. And we used this exercise to apply to the philosophy of Simon Sinek and the Golden Rule or the Golden Circle. He encourages us all to not focus on advertising our what, but to focus on advertising our why. And before we can do that, I think this is a really helpful exercise to unpack your why, and that can act as the core of your marketing messaging as you move forward. So again, great activity to do if it's a personal situation that you're stuck on or a professional situation, or to help remind you of the core values of your company before you create marketing messaging and fun stuff like that. Anybody want to share their 5 whys?
Kayleen, what is challenging about doing this exercise? Like, where do people get stuck on this?
Yeah, I usually get stuck in why like 2, 3, and 4. You really have to be focused and peaceful and calm and reflective and willing to look into yourself when you do this exercise, to get past the obvious answers to the less obvious answers. For example, in the one that I just shared with you guys, in my very first why, I said to myself, well, my income's relatively consistent and requires the majority of my bandwidth. That's a good obvious why for why I would be afraid to take a leap of faith. But when I unpack that, when I like really sit with that some more, and I sit with, well, what is urging me to feel this way, to want to have this side hustle, and I unpack and I get a few more layers down, I realize this is really about having an impact and being authentic and having an opportunity to connect. And so I think the challenging part of this exercise is moving past your defaults and assumptions and obvious answers and really doing the soul searching to unpack what is at the core of that. I know for me, I think we all kind of have some fundamental wounds where most things will come back and touch those wounds. My number one most pervasive wound is somehow everything that ever goes awry in my life, I can trace all the way back to this wound, is my worthiness wound. I really struggle to feel worthy of everything. Most things. And even in this particular exercise that I just shared with you guys, you can see that if you look between the lines, you can see that coming to the surface towards the bottom of the exercise. Well, of course, I'm scared to take a leap of faith and present myself authentically and move away from what is stable and consistent to do something less predictable, because that is all a matter of worthiness, is it not? So yeah, that's the long answer to, I think it's really a difficult exercise to be able to be so honest with yourself.
Do you ever find that you like write an answer that you think you should write rather than like the real answer? You know, like I would find
Yes.
that if I was doing this and then knowing I was coming to this session, I'd be like, okay, I have to write the answer that I think I should write, instead of sitting there and writing the, you know, thinking about what really is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great reason to not share this exercise right now. I would rather you guys be really honest with yourselves and not, want to step forward and share that, with us right now. So yes, I think that it is easy to write in what we think we should be answering these questions with. And I find that that happens for me towards the top of the exercise, and that it gets filtered out by the bottom of the exercise if I'm really being intent about it. Yeah, so this is another great one to add to your toolbox. I'm pretty sure that we've got the link to the Simon Sinek video up in the chat for you guys so that you can watch that if you want to do this exercise to just help unpack the why, the core why for your business. I think that's absolutely awesome.
And I'll just chime in there real quick that Spencer, if you kind of collect all the links and tools that Kayleen has shared and send them to Angela, she's creating a resource library so we can kind of capture some of this stuff for people moving forward.
Awesome. That's going to be great. Okay. So this is a big one. Obviously, we're here to talk about mental health in the workplace. And so I've got a bunch of suggestions for you guys. One thing that I really want to encourage you to consider is that your brain is your best business asset. It's easy to forget that. Sometimes you think it's your really, really nice computer or something that you invested in on behalf of your company, but you wouldn't be running your company or doing your work without your beautiful, beautiful brain. And so let's cherish your brain as your most precious business asset. And really, I want us to be thinking about the ways that we can foster these conversations in the workplace and make our work communities safe and comfortable for everybody to come forward with what they're experiencing. So I want to encourage you to give the permission to explore, confront, and discuss mental health issues as a community. As a leader, as an employee, as an employer, how can we be creating those conversations? So we want to destigmatize these conversations. I encourage you to have small group one-on-one meetings. Sometimes these conversations can be harder to have as a large group. So taking the time as a leader to meet one-on-one with employees and team members to be able to have these conversations is really important, especially during this time of COVID-19, increased working from home, more people experiencing isolation. It is more important than ever before to connect one-on-one with people via video calls so that you can be attempting to make eye contact and you can share gestures and you can see that person's facial expressions and you can check in with them in a really authentic way. So can you challenge yourself to have those one-on-one meetings with the people in your team? Provide your employees with resources and support, right? That's pretty fundamental. Make sure, and that can be a spectrum. I think all the way on the most magnificent end of the spectrum can you actually provide mental health services for your employees? Can that be something that your company covers the cost of? All the way down to, can you just provide employees with time off for those appointments? Can you post blogs with resources for them or share out emails, do little gratitude exercises together, things like that. So whether it's small or whether it's huge, what can you be doing to offer resources and support for your team members? Encourage that open and honest sharing. That's what we're doing here. You could do something like the wellness meter all together. You could do something like the 5 whys together. You could do a gratitude practice together. You could just have mindfulness time together. So how can you encourage that transparency and honesty in your business? One thing I heard recently that I think is really important for us as leaders to remember is that we need to share our micro failures. It's so easy, especially like I mentioned earlier, when you are your brand, you don't want to ever admit to doing anything wrong, right? But really there's this level of authenticity that comes with being able to share micro failures, whether that's within your team or on behalf of your brand at large. So I really encourage you guys to think about how you can foster an environment of sharing those things with the people above and below you and beside you as well. Encouraging your employees to complain up. This is another one that I just tossed onto the bottom there. I think that it is a default for us to complain to our peers within our organizations when all that does is foster resentment and tension, when in fact, if we complain up to our superiors, hey, manager, I'm growing a little concerned about X, Y, or Z. Can I have an appointment with you to discuss this and work through this? That's going to help you not build up that resentment in the workplace, actually address problems, get them solved, have open and honest communication, and make that workplace just so much more efficient. So how can you complain up or encourage your employees and team members to complain up rather than complaining sideways and complaining down, which creates tension and resentment in the workplace, right? I just want to stop for a second and take a couple questions. I have a couple more slides with some actionable tips for you guys, but I think this is a good point to pause and have some discussion. Any questions about the material that we've looked at so far? Anecdotes, concerns?
What's a good way to start having these conversations if it's a new team or you've sort of joined a new team and that wasn't really part of the culture before? What's kind of a good way to start that?
Yeah, so I suppose I would look to go about it in an informal, formal way. So I would want to have like a happy hour or a coffee hour, something with like food or beverage that makes it just slightly less like we're not gathered around the conference table to talk about mental health today, like we're gathered around our coffee cups to talk about mental health today, and just bring that team together around some sort of food or drink and start the question like, hey, how do you guys talk about mental health concerns in this organization? Do you guys talk about mental health concerns? My mental health concerns are blank. My experience has been like this. Like, I think it's really important that we do team gratitude, or I think it's really important that we have one-on-one coffee dates, something like that, to just kind of bridge the conversation. You know, I wouldn't send it out as a bulk email, or I wouldn't do it around a conference table. I'd be looking to make that a more intimate, friendly experience with that team. And then, of course, if you're meeting totally remotely with your team, then I think you schedule that happy hour or you schedule that coffee date. I've been seeing a lot of different companies doing that stuff virtually, and I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know how many of you guys have gone to the virtual happy hours, but it's pretty easy peasy to sit on the other end of your computer and enjoy a cold beverage and kind of decompress, get out of that work headspace and get into a community and connective one-on-one human relationship headspace. Great. I was gonna pop the chat box up here again. I love that comment about talking to a 5-year-old full of why is a great personal growth experience. Exactly. I think that really speaks to what is challenging about that exercise is you have an adult brain now, and you want to, like Mara said, you want to kind of have what seems like the correct answer when you go through that exercise. Turn off your adult brain, talk to your inner 5-year-old and have that conversation with them. If that doesn't sound too schizophrenic to you guys, you know, if you can disconnect and really try to connect with a younger, more authentic, vulnerable, fun, playful version of yourself, what does he or she truly want to say? And how does he or she truly want to respond to those questions? If you were a 5-year-old, what would you answer? I love that. That's great. All right. Any other questions before we move along? I'm going to give you guys a couple of my favorite secrets ever that you can apply to your day-to-day life. You guys are going to love this. Coming up next, tips for a happier to-do list. This might seem a little silly, but some of these things are revolutionary and I think just awesome. Primo mental health tips right here, guys. So make your to-do list for the next day at the end of the previous workday. I love this one. It is how I tie up the workday with a little bow and I say, bye-bye workday, see you tomorrow. I get to the end of my current day's list and then I get to look at my calendar for the upcoming day, reflect on the meetings and tasks that I have assigned to me, and figure out what's really going to be realistic and get that list queued up for the next day. That way, when I'm ready to get started, I sit down with my coffee and I look at that to-do list on a piece of paper before I ever touch my phone or my computer or anything. And it just gets me so dialed in with intention and mindfulness into what is exactly ahead of me for the day. So highly recommend making your to-do list for the next day at the end of the previous day. Now, this next one is pure gold. I wish I could remember who said this to me. So if you are the person and you watch this later, please shout out and remind me that you are the person that gave me this most beautiful piece of advice ever. Make your to-do list like you're making it for a friend. What a simple piece of advice. Before that, you would swear I was making my to-do list like for the devil himself. You'd think I hated the person that I was making that to-do list for. I would just stack it full of activities, meetings, emails, task, hard task, harder task, even harder task, don't give up, more tasks. Like most unrealistic to-do lists of all time, and hence probably the crying at the to-do list thing. That's so somebody gave me the simplest piece of advice: make your to-do list like you're making it for a friend. Whoa, revolutionary. How I spoke earlier about identifying which tasks give you energy and which tasks drain your energy, being able to balance those tasks on your calendar, knowing, okay, I'm going to give you some fun ones. I know you're going to enjoy your meetings, so here's your meetings. And then I know you're going to love that graphic design task, so I'm going to give that to you. And just one task that I know is going to be super hard for you, and then a couple easy ones. So knowing how you like to prioritize your tasks, which ones give you energy and which ones take it away from you, and make that to-do list like you're making it for a friend. I think that is hugely impactful and should immediately alter the way that you stack up your day for yourself, right? Any comments about to-do lists specifically? I'm a to-do list lover. Cool. Just so you guys know, I am working on a passion project where I am putting together a daily planner for entrepreneurs that is going to guide you through this structure and help you make these really healthy, happy to-do lists. So if that's something that you guys are interested in learning more about, stay connected with me after this because the prototype is coming to life as we speak, and I'll be looking for amazing people like yourselves to use that and give me some feedback on that. For now, good old pen and paper, make that to-do list like you're making it for somebody you love, not somebody you hate. Okay, lastly, guys, these are some really important fundamental business boundaries. I know that when I was first starting my business, I didn't have any boundaries with my business for several years. It was my 24/7, 36 hours a day, 7 days a week is how it felt to me back then. No boundaries. And these are boundaries that I have had to convince myself to establish to protect my mental health. And I think we are all worthy. And if you are a leader within your organization, this is a great opportunity to kind of make some rules that impact people from the top down by giving them these boundaries and encouraging them to know that this is okay. So establishing communication boundaries with your clients, letting them know if you prefer to communicate via email or text or phone call, and if you have working hours that are appropriate to contact you within. When Mountain Dog Media first started, 1.5 years ago, we had a client. So we were at first a web design agency. We had built a website for a woman and a button on her website broke. And she called us about 78 times between midnight and 4 a.m. And I woke up to over 100 text messages. And I get up at like 6:30 in the morning. So this was an inappropriate amount of communication during inappropriate hours and encouraged me to realize that I needed to establish those boundaries with my clients. So I said to her, I understand that you have a broken button on your website. One email probably would have been sufficient to bring that to our attention, and we will respond to it when we are at our machines and working the appropriate hours. I'm sure you guys all have different nightmare versions of that anecdote where somebody just blatantly did not respect what seems like should be pretty fundamental boundaries. But if you don't clarify, how are they really supposed to know? So that's something that I really encourage you to consider is what are your communication preferences with your clients? I personally hate getting voicemails. I don't know why. I don't like to check my voicemails. I would much rather get an email or a text message from you unless we have a scheduled call, right? So that's one of my communication boundaries. Choosing call-free and meeting-free days. What a gift. I'm sure that if you're not doing this already, do it right now. Pick one day a week. And the glory of this is nobody's going to mess it up. If you pick it out, you can just enforce it effective immediately. Nobody has to know. You can just not schedule meetings on Wednesdays. And you can just not schedule phone calls on Mondays. So I love scheduling the call-free and meeting-free days. I like to have at least one of each week because I know that that's going to help me focus and get into a flow state. If you guys have read about flow states in your work, it's really important not to have interruptions and to be able to focus. I know for me, one of the things that I do is SEO copywriting. So when I am writing a ton of text with a desirable keyword density, don't call me. I can't stop for a meeting in the middle of that. I can't stop to pet my dog. I can't have 30 Rock on in the background. That needs to be a call-free, meeting-free day with coffee and copy until I'm done, a marathon. So understanding what types of tasks require that undivided attention from you and scheduling those tasks for the days when you've decided to give yourself call-free and meeting-free days. That's huge right there, people. Thank you so much for mentioning somebody else in this world hates voicemail. I really appreciate it. Okay, and then obviously creating boundaries with your business, such as working hours and working location. Like I said, first 5 years of Mountain Dog Media didn't have no working hours boundaries. I started this company when I was a full-time barista. So I would get up at 4 in the morning and make coffee until 1 in the afternoon, and then work on Mountain Dog Media in a caffeinated haze until I fell asleep at, who knows what, midnight, question mark. No boundaries around my work, just working all the time. And that is not sustainable. I have a hard and fast boundary that I do not work after 6 p.m. Heck no. That works for me. That might not work for you guys. I get started at like 7 in the morning for context. So I think it's okay to like cut myself off after 11 hours of work. So that's one that I protect. Working location. First year that I started Mountain Dog Media, must admit that I was very guilty of working from bed. Don't really recommend working from bed. Not a great place to be focused, not a great place to get into a flow state, not a great place for your mental health. I think it's really important as freelancers, self-employed persons, if you're working from home, please have a dedicated office space that is not your bed, not in your bedroom. That's going to allow you to focus and be intent, and also leave it behind. I now have this nice little desk here that's hanging out in the corner of my living room. And when I'm done, I close my computer and I walk away, and I'm not at work anymore. So that's a really great way to separate that, to get that boundary in your life, that separation of church and state a little bit. Having the door to shut at the end of the day makes everything so much better for my mental health. I agree. As founders, your business just sits on your shoulders 24 hours a day. It seems like I have also turned off all notifications on my phone, all of them, because it's so overwhelming as a small business owner to just ding, 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 ding. I do social media for a dozen clients, and I can't have all of their notifications popping up simultaneously on my phone. I can't have email notifications popping up on my phone. I will go insane. So I think that goes hand in hand with having a separate space to do your work. You can leave your work behind when you leave that space. I don't need those constant notifications reminding me of how stressed out I have the potential to be. That doesn't help me out. Ooh, gray screen. Nice and soothing. Yeah. I've got a picture of my dog in the backcountry that just makes me super happy every time I look at it. I'm like, yay. All right, guys. So those are some of my basic fundamental tips for establishing better business boundaries, and for making happier to-do lists, and for facilitating destigmatized conversations about mental health in the workplace. Don't forget to do that wellness meter every now and again. Check out with yourself. If you're really stuck on something, you can use the 5 whys. Talk to that inner 5-year-old within yourself and get those truly authentic answers. Absolutely love that. Are there any other questions or comments about mental health in the workplace? Awesome. So I would love to encourage you guys to all get connected on LinkedIn. Add me, I'll add you. Follow each other on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Mountain Dog Media. Just put that in the chat for you guys. That's a pretty active place to find me. If anybody else wants to dump an Instagram handle in there, that's a great medium for me. That's also going to be a great way to stay in touch if you're interested in learning more about the Entrepreneur's Planner, Daily Planner. It doesn't have a name, but it is coming together. And I really want to share that. That's going to be free to the first 20 people that reach out to me to beta test that. So anybody that wants to be a beta tester on my Entrepreneur's Planner, connect with me on Instagram, connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys stepping forward to have this conversation and this experience. This is already a step in the right direction. That you read this title and you thought, I want to be a part of that discussion. That is the first step. So I feel really great that I was able to share with you guys today. I hope maybe it helps just even one person feel slightly less alone. It's certainly easy when you're experiencing mental health symptoms to feel like you're the only person in the world that feels that way. I know for me, it was a huge change in my life when I started to realize that I wasn't the only person experiencing this phenomenon, that in fact, 1 out of 3 entrepreneurs struggles with a mental illness. And the more I read and learned about it, the more I realized that hustling and burnout go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So let's keep you from burning to a crisp. Let's keep you glorious and juicy and happy and yummy, living your most delicious life. Happy to share these stories with you guys or to connect outside of this space if anybody has anything vulnerable that they want to share.
Kayleen, thank you so much for sharing this today. I'm going to stop the recording now.